Hello, hello, and welcome along. Today's conversation is about threshold experiences and how your spiritual experience is actually the beginning of something as opposed to maybe the goal that you initially would have set out to achieve, perhaps, or it might have just happened. So often, if you imagine grabbing a brochure when we go for a holiday or the brochure of, say, spiritual awakening, many people might grab that brochure and say, if I have these certain experiences, if I experience X, Y, Z, then that means I am awakened, enlightened, and that will be the end. That is the goal, right? I'm going off on the mountain of awakening, and once I can sit on top of that mountain and have the view, then I'm done. Well, actually, no. That is one journey. Absolutely. It is one journey to take and have those experiences and awaken and open more and more. But really, what often happens to people who have had spiritual experiences, and especially a spiritual experience that changed them, that fundamentally shifted kind of who they are, their values, how they operate, what they think, we call that a spiritually transformative experience. So someone who's had such an experience, that itself can often be the doorway, that the experience itself is actually the threshold. It is that place that we cross through, we step over that doorway, and in doing so, we've entered into a new chapter of life, a new way of being, a new mode of operating as a human being. And the reason that that moment is much more like a threshold, much more like a beginning than an end, is that although certain aspects might have been met, a part of the goal, like I wanted to have an experience, right? I wanted to have that spiritual experience or have an opening of some sort, although that might have been met, that simply ends one chapter to begin us to a new place. Because of course, once we have these experiences, well, now an opening or a shift or a transformation has begun. And then what? So there are things that happen afterwards. There are important phases that actually occur after the threshold spiritual experience. There is a period of integration that is required, especially if that experience was like, whoa, to the being, right? If it really shook us up in some way and it shook up how we had been operating until that point in time, then the integration is going to be, more complex, perhaps longer. We will need different elements to it. Everyone's unique in their experience in terms of how to ground an experience and integrate it. But generally, integration will require understanding what happened to me and piecing some of those pieces together, right? Reviewing over the experience and pulling from the experience the lessons, the wisdom, the golden nuggets, as I like to call them, from that. That can go a long way. That in itself can go a long way to integrating what has occurred to us. Then there are more pieces that happen. So that's kind of like the beginning part of the journey after you've gone into the threshold, right? Because now you've got your feet, you're finding your feet in this new world and in this new way of being. So, okay, you found your feet, and now kind of comes this more bringing it into the body and the self and, grounding it and understanding who we now are as our kind of refreshed, revived, expanded selves, right? As though you're almost operating like a 2.0 of yourself. That was the first life pre-experience, and then now is the 2.0 version. Now what, right? So now that I've had those experiences and I understand those things, how do I apply that in my life so that my knowing is in harmony with my doing and my being in the world, right? That is the great task of this part, is to come into alignment with who we truly are at our essence, who we understand ourselves to be at our most natural state, at our most, our optimal operating, yeah? And then comes another phase of that journey, right? Where we then get even better at, now that we've understood who we are, right, at our core and our gifts and how we're operating, now to start doing it more and more so that we get some level of mastery in what we're actually doing, how we're sharing what we do in the world, how we be ourselves, right? Naturally. It takes time to step into that and to grow the confidence in doing that, and to for it to become, you know, just part of how we operate. Because what happens as you start to walk more of you authentically and stand more comfortably and confidently in who you are is, as that repetition occurs, you now allow space for some of the old stuff to come forward, right? Some of the old patterns, some of the old thoughts. So you might be wondering, as you're on your path, why is this constantly happening? Or why do I keep finding myself in this scenario? Or why do I keep ending up in this type of relationship? Or, you know, why can't I break free of this certain pattern, right? Now that we're even more aware of our patterns, right? Because we can see these things. Now it gives them space to come back and to revisit. And this is a wonderful thing. This is a point in the journey where, you know, it's easy to freak out or lose faith, or, you know, just feel it's all very dark. And some people go through a bit of a dark night of the soul in this part, because there can be some dark things that resurface in this part. It can feel really hard, right? And also a sense of homesickness, to mourn and want to go back to the experience, to not want this part of this kind of more awakened life, because it can be very hard to have to do the work, to have to face the shadow aspects. And yet here they are, and here it is. You've created in your own life the space for that to happen. And so the task at this point is to navigate it and go through it. And of course, the more you are able to do that and get clear on your stuff and do your own self-work, and just through doing that process, your natural light shines through. It's not a forced process that you have to do. It is an innate process that occurs as a result of you sticking the course, being true to who you are and doing you most naturally in the world. You shine naturally from that place. You radiate naturally from that place, and you attract naturally from that place, because you are more in alignment with your own frequency and with the greater frequency that runs through you, right? So you're at your optimal functioning at that point, right? And so this is the challenge now at that stage of the game, is to walk that pathway. And of course, in doing that, you know, your networks change, you look around, your tribe shifts, right? Your relationships will be a particular way. Maybe some of the service that you do in the world, and, you know, how you should choose to exchange with others has also shifted as well. So that's why those are the pieces that take time, right? Because it can't happen. It can't happen overnight like that, right? It's a practice. And so hence, the spiritual experience can be the threshold, the doorway that one actually walks through at the very beginning of that. And might have many more, you know, opening spiritual sacred experiences throughout, of course, because it becomes infused and it guides the way in what happens. So standing at the threshold, have your experiences been the threshold for you? Are you at a threshold now? Can you look back on where you've been and see if that was a threshold experience for you, a doorway through which you crossed and everything was different afterwards? As always, love to hear from you. Share the love, share it round, and share a bit of your story if you're keen to. Much love. Oh, and go and grab the Agents of Awesome roadmap, because that is the roadmap that outlines exactly what I have been talking about right here. You can grab that in the link. Much love.